Hello and welcome to Ask George with George Dobell and Elizabeth Botcherby, and it's the end of day 2 of the 4th test between India and England in Ranchi. Well, hi George, what did you make of today's play?
Good day. I thought it was an old-fashioned, fairly attritional day of Test cricket, a bit like the previous day, actually. And England have ended it on top.
Yeah, I think England will be pretty happy with where they are 2 days in, which isn't something you can always say about Test matches, I suppose.
No, definitely not. But winning the toss is obviously a significant advantage here. But that's okay. That's part of the game. And I thought they had to work really hard. So I thought they'll be particularly pleased that young players like Shoaib Bashir should play such a big part in getting them into a position where they really can think of pushing on for the win. There's a lot of work to do, of course, but they're right in this game and in this series.
Well, you can read all of George's coverage of England's tour of India and more by subscribing to the Cricketer's digital offering, and you can do that via the link in the video description. And remember, we'll be producing these videos from every day of the 5-test series, and you can submit your questions via our social media channels using the hashtag AskGeorge. And the first question today is from Rich, who asks, should we just expect the unexpected?
Now, I find that a bit of a surprising question today because it was today particularly unexpected. I thought today was kind of old-fashioned. It was a bit of a grind, wasn't it? I thought England had to work really hard, and they played a slightly different style of cricket, I think. I thought they concentrated on trying to maintain pressure. They didn't go searching for wickets, really. I thought Shoaib Bashir just bowled a super length, good areas, and maintained pressure. And that maybe isn't what you expect with this England. You almost expect a bouncer barrage or a leggy to bowl to toss them up and ask some questions. But they didn't do that. They just sort of applied pressure over quite a long time. But maybe that's what he means. Maybe that's what was unexpected. But I thought it was a good, mature performance from England, and eventually they got the rewards.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's been talking about England's bowling kind of after today's play, but what did you make of India's batting? Were they just, I don't know, worn down by the control?
I think that's quite well put. Yes, I think Shoaib's a good bowler. I do think he asks a lot of questions, bowls at that difficult length. And he's tall and he gets a bit of bounce. So you could see, for example, so much of what he does you could encapsulate into the wicket of Jadeja. So he's tall and he bowls good areas and he gets a bit of turn. So Jadeja is desperately trying to keep the ball down. He's almost on his knees playing it into the pitch. But because he gets a bit of bounce, because probably hits a bit of a crack, it pops up. He's unable to keep it down, and because of the control he's bowled with, England have been able to keep a close fielder, and the ball goes to them. So I wouldn't be particularly critical. I think Joswell again at times just looks almost too good. It's just what's he averaging in this series? 100. I mean, and he will feel that he made a bit of a mistake, but it's a bowler applying pressure, it's overspin, it's slightly misreading the length. It's what happens if you put enough balls in the right area for long enough, I think. So, look, it is a significant disadvantage losing the toss, and it is a weakness of the sport, I think. But it's been this way since the dawn of time, and it's not over. The tail can wag. England will want to take a lead of over 100. Who knows how they'll bat in the third innings of the match. Long way to go.
Orny Actor asks, just how good is Shoaib Bashir? He reminds me so much of Saqlain Mushtaq.
I don't see that. I actually replied. I saw that one come in, and I don't really see that. In that, Saqlain obviously is a brilliant bowler, but he had the Dusra, a hell of a weapon, and he was quite short. Shoaib is basically bowling the same ball again and again and again from a very tall height. I don't really see the similarity, to be honest, but I may be missing something. So come back to me on that. How good is he? Oh, there's a lot to work with. there is a lot to work with. I know it sounds simple, but it's so much of anything really, but sport, as cricket, is about not doing things actually, and he doesn't bowl bad balls. Have you just subbed my piece, the botch? Because I'm just repeating what I've written in it, aren't I? So I just want to apologise to you. But he didn't bowl the full tosses that I'm afraid Rehan and Hartley do bowl, or the drag downs that they bowl as well. He doesn't really do that. He is tall. He does get overspin. He is continually asking questions. He bowls a fantastic length. They're not sure whether to go forward or back. He's just asking questions all the time. And you would think that there's quite a lot more to come. You would love him to be able to get a bit of drift on the ball. I think that would take him to a different level. But he's 20. He hasn't taken 20 first-class wickets yet. It's amazing what he's doing. So he's very exciting, but all sorts of issues. Where the hell's he going to get the overs he needs in first-class cricket? Yeah, all sorts of things. And he batted like a schoolboy today, didn't he? But so we have to remember he's very young and very raw. But yeah, there's a lot to work with.
Hattie Wright asks, would Tom Hartley be in line for England's player of the series so far? Runs with the bat when England needed them and good wickets too, although Bashir could quite literally turn it around.
Hello, Hattie. That's an interesting question. I think I'm going to sort of avoid it by saying what they've done well is combined to be worth more than the sum of their parts. So it kind of feels a bit of a mistake to single one of them out and say, oh, he's been the player of the series. Does that make sense? Because that's not how they're playing. They really are. Yeah, they're combining at different times. But you're right, his figures, I mean, I think he's the top wicket taker in the series, isn't he? I don't know, he's a funny bowler because when the ball's turning and when he gets it right, he is a handful. But there are the release balls in there. But yes, he could be. He's certainly done his job. He's certainly justified his selection. And the important thing is it's a team game, really, though. But he's played his part in a team that, halfway through the fourth test is right in the series. And I think that means the tour's been a success for England. I mean, I didn't think that they could win, and they possibly can. And there's a maximum of 8 days left of the series. It's pretty good.
Jack Rule sticks with the spinners and asks, what do England do in the summer? Do they go back to Jack Leach, or has he now been overtaken by Hartley and Bashir?
It's a good question. I don't think he's been overtaken by Hartley, to be honest. Not that Hartley's better ball might be better than Leach's, but I think Hartley bowls too many loose balls. And in England, you've got to face it. Very often, the role of the spinner is just to maintain control. And Shoaib does come in there. So I don't know the answer, but I think Shoaib has a higher ceiling. And I'll put it like this. Who plays for Somerset? They can't both play in April, surely. So which of them, if either of them, play for Somerset at the start of the county season? I mean, it's a super problem to have in a way, but, Somerset have had similar problems with, say, Keyswetter and Butler, and they ended up losing both of them. So they're going to have to be very careful not to do the same thing. For those who aren't interested in county cricket, Shoaib and Leach both play for Somerset. And yeah, it's. I think Shoaib is edging ahead, but they've invested a lot of time in Jack Leach. There's a lot of affection for him, and he's tougher than he is sometimes thought to be. So I think it's between those two right now.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned it in your piece about, whether it's Leach or Bashir at Somerset and Hartley having to battle with Nathan Lyon at Lancashire.
Yeah.
I mean, how do England ensure that both of those players and more of the spinners in general actually get opportunities and aren't just sat twiddling their thumbs or, playing kind of a bit part to other players?
Yeah, it's a super question, and it's going to be a lot better than the answer. Because the answer is that while you've got the structure we have, that's not going to happen. You can't expect counties to, give themselves up to the England cause entirely and just play players who might be useful for England at some stage. You have to try and win as well. And the fact is that so much county cricket is played when spinners don't have a lot of assistance. It's going to be difficult to see two spinners playing. It's very difficult for young bowlers to get the volume of overs they need to optimise their development. So it's a huge problem. But look, I would go back to not playing county cricket in windows. So you'd play the championship throughout the season, and you'd play your limited overs competitions as much as possible on Friday nights throughout the season. Well, not at the start of the season, but you would not play in windows, and there are disadvantages with that too. But I think it's for the lesser damage is done by and you prioritise. We don't really prioritise competition. You prioritise in all of them, I would say. But yeah, it's not exactly the 100. It's just having any competition that takes up the whole of August makes it very hard, because you are taking away the peak weeks of the season when spinners would be most prevalent in red ball cricket.
ASO asks, why is Oly Robinson bowling 120km/h off spinners already?
Someone I better not name them, because they sent me a message saying something like, I love the way England's spinners are bowling. The flight Oly Robinson is getting is particularly terrific, or something like that. He's a puzzling cricketer, isn't he, Oly Robinson? I mean, he bowled at a speed that was somewhere between slow and stationary. And while speed isn't everything, it's not nothing. I mean, it was mid-70s, wasn't it? Mid 75, 77 miles an hour. I don't know. It was interesting in mid-afternoon that Anderson went up a gear. And when the ball was reversing a bit, he seemed to really run in and hit the pitch as hard as he could. And, it wasn't massively fast, but by the standards of him these days, I think he was up to 84 miles an hour or so. Robinson, I don't know, I guess to be fair to him, he looked as if he needed a game. It's a long, long time since he's played a game of cricket, isn't it? A competitive game of cricket. But I thought that when he started his first over was a bit sluggish, and he'd get into it, and it just never picked up the pace. I'm a big fan of Oly Robinson. He is terribly skillful, and it's not by any means that he bowled badly. But Lord Almighty, it was slow. I mean, it was gentle.
How would you have liked to have seen him bowl? Would you have liked to see him kind of attacking the batters? Attacking sounds weird, but yeah, attacking the batters.
I would. I'd have also liked to see him bowl a little bit straighter, but I'm sure he was doing what he was trying. I'm sure he bowled in the areas he wanted to bowl. I mean, he always bowls a good length. But it looked like he had settled in to a sort of containment role, which is okay. I just think with the new ball for a little while, you've got an opportunity, and it felt that he eased his way in. Don't understand. It looked like he was. Well, if you'd known that one of them was a veteran seamer and one of them was a guy having a first opportunity on a 1-year central contract, of course, having his first opportunity in 6 months or whatever it is, I think you might have thought it was the other way around. I mean, he looked kind of old, which is rich coming from me. But I don't know. I don't really understand, because it did, as I say, it did seem very gentle. But let's not go over the top. It's not like he bowled poorly. He maintained pressure. He probed. I was just a bit surprised how gentle it was.
Thomas Jones asks, what were India thinking with this pitch? Essentially made it a toss of the coin on who wins.
Well, I still don't particularly understand the pitch. I mean, we talked about this yesterday, and I said, I think that sometimes pitches just die, and there was a period of play for a couple of hours where I thought that was happening. But there is still something there, isn't there? And you would think that the decline would accelerate as the game went on. But are we going to go 5 days? Not sure we are. What were they thinking? I mean, it's not a perfect world, is it? It's not a perfect science, pitch preparation, and it might be they haven't got exactly what they wanted. I think it is fair to say that you shouldn't have people dismissed by a ball scuttling before lunch on the first day. And in fact, you don't really want to see that any time, and I don't think that's a great test of skill. And there was a ball today, I can't remember who, was it to Jaswell or Jadeja, that there was an appeal, and it was going down the leg side off Hartley. It wasn't anywhere near out. I think England may have reviewed it. It was a poor review. But the review showed that it was basically bouncing for a second time by the stumps. I mean, the bounces, and that could become impossible for batters. So what were they thinking? I think they probably just got it a bit wrong. But, it seemed from the outside that India have the resources to play on just good wickets, even now when they're missing 4 or 5 first choice players. They've still got the resources that they possibly the better team on good wickets. And it does bring England back into it a bit more. It does bring England spinners back into it a bit more. And it does bring the toss into it ever more when you play on this sort of wicket. So I think they've probably just got it wrong. It happens.
And Ripe Lemon asks, why isn't the stadium packed?
Oh, I don't know what everyone is. It's a fair question. But I do have to answer it by saying they've been, the crowds on this tour have been terrific. And they've played in venues where England don't go so often. And I think it's been fully justified. No, I don't know what everyone in Ranchi has plans for this weekend. Well, do you know what I mean? I don't. And I don't know what the disposable income is. I don't know. So I don't really feel I can give an informed view. But it is the first test of the series, really, which hasn't felt as if the attendances were really good. The atmospheres have been very good. The attendances have been good. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's a bit disappointing, but again, it does happen. I wouldn't want to read too much into these things. It's one game of 4 so far, and the others have been really good. I mean, one of the things you see again and again, and they pretty much got away with it in both Vizag and Rajkot, is out of town venues, be they India, Antigua, Southampton, near Southampton, don't really work. There's a hell of a lot to be said for, people being able to rock up after work or not have a terrible journey to get somewhere. But that's a completely different observation. If you've got a town centre venue, there's an awful lot to be said for it. Northampton, however much the developers might want it.
And finally, this is a question from me. If you were England, how would you approach tomorrow?
Well, they've got to get those wickets first. And they don't want to put themselves under any pressure. But so firstly, I'd open the bowling with Shoaib. And then when you bat, look, they have to bat to their different strengths. So Ben Duckett probably should sweep. He probably should. And cut and play the shots that he plays. He's a square of the wicket player. He just scored a fantastic 100 in the last game. It's not like he was using his feet and all the cliches that you hear you have to play on Indian pitches. So he needs to play his game. Crawley needs to play his game, and Root needs to play his very different game. They've got different strengths. I'd like Ollie Pope to just chill out a little. I almost swore, and just bat. Just calm the hell down. He's so good. Well, what's he doing? Nipping down the wicket. How many balls did he batted? 2? And he didn't just come skip down the wicket. So what chance did he have of gauging where the ball was going to be? But then he tried to hit it through mid-wicket. Just bat. Give yourself a chance to bat. England aren't going to be in a hurry. They might well be batting in their second innings before lunch on day 3. Okay, so there's no hurry. And what they do need to be doing is making sure they're still batting at the end of day 3. Because if they have a lead of 100, getting another 100 isn't enough. So remember, India could win the series possibly tomorrow. And England went into the second or third day in Rajkot, third day, with a huge opportunity. And by lunch, they completely screwed it up. well, a mixture of them screwing it up and India seizing back the initiative. So I'd like them to be a bit calmer and play to their strengths. But that doesn't mean that Duckett and co shouldn't be aggressive, because Duckett and Crawley have nailed this series, and they probably need to play to their strengths. Does that make sense? I don't think that's I mean, I have rambled, of course, but I think that's fair. That it's not. That's the whole thing about what we've been talking about over the last month. It's so often all this stuff is talked about as binary, and people who think in binary terms, it's frustrating. It's always more complex than that. And I thought, Joe Root just needs to do what Joe Root does, doesn't he? Johnny Bairstow needs some runs. Johnny Bairstow batted so well in the first innings by playing the ball on its merits. Okay, he was looking to be aggressive, yeah? But anything that was overpitched, you could see his eyes light up. I mean, you could see it happening. And it was like, oh, I'll have that. Or anything short, he was brilliant at rocking back. And then just once he tries to premeditate and it's over. So just give themselves some time. Bat. You can do a lot worse than watching what Jaswell does. I mean, he's absolutely masterful. It has been all series. He gives himself some time, but then he can go through the gears as he gets in. So they could do a lot worse than learning from a very young player who we are going to see masses of in the next decade.
Well, thanks, George, and we'll be back with Ask George on day 3.
Cheers, the Botch.